In this video, we're going to be going over how you can use the VA loan to acquire a multifamily property. And we're going to just kind of go through our experience with it, some of the lessons that we've learned, and some of the maybe tips to kind of make your process a little bit smoother than kind of ours going through it just for the first time.
So to just give some backstory on why, we wanted to do this or how we got interested in doing it. So we're both in the Coast Guard, and I was in Houston before, and then I was PCSing to New Orleans. So as soon as I got orders there, we started talking and seeing what we wanted to do in terms of getting a house. So this was what? 2021. Yeah, 2021, like spring of 2021. The goal was for us to find a house that we were like either paying, we could get a source of income that would either pay the mortgage completely or have like a large percentage of it. Yeah. So that was like the concept that we went into. The goal was to eliminate our housing expense or like greatly reduce it however much we could. So we were originally thinking just a duplex, like a small duplex or something like that. We started doing research into the areas, figure out what areas were, and then we were also like doing the numbers to figure that out. And we had like a spreadsheet. We'll maybe do another video that talks more about into like how we were able to do the research and find the property that we ended up closing on. But the first kind of just thing we had to go through is just like what was reasonable as far as the financing and talking to a lender and things like that, because that is, we learned, is the first step that you need to kind of get sorted out before we even start looking at any houses. So,
right. So like we reached out to mostly local banks and kind of explained our situation. And then at first, if you're just kind of going through maybe how I would say like a majority of people looking to buy a house are, the lender will kind of just give you like a sort of like a blanket or a standard process, which basically just only uses your debt to income ratio and says maybe like, hey, if you're making $80,000 a year, limited consumer debt, whatever, these are just rough numbers, you can qualify for maybe 200, 300K house, right? But in an area like New Orleans, median home price is just under like 500K, right? So it's
in
like
the area that we were looking based off our research, yeah. Right.
So what we had to do was kind of explain to the lender, like, hey, this is what we're looking to achieve. We're trying to get a multifamily property. We kind of actually sent an analysis, and we sent a property that we were like, hey, this is an example property. So it was like basically the TRIPLEX.
Yeah, it was a TRIPLEX.
And we sent also multiple other multifamilies, and we said, hey, this is the market rent that we're estimating. And what they could do is then they're like, okay, well, you're looking for more multifamily property. They can take up to 75% of that market rental rate and help kind of reduce how much you really need to qualify for. So we ended up going through this process, sending them the numbers, and they got back to us based on just only Jessica's full VA entitlement and just on her debt to income ratio. We got pre-approved for that full amount, which was at 860K for, and it was like since it was VA, how you only need to really put 0% down. It even said on the pre-qualification, max loan to value or an LTV of 99.9 or 85%, right? That's basically like you put 0% down or maybe cover a little bit, but that's the idea, right?
And it took a little bit of convincing, or a little bit of us like gaining some experience and, confidence to be able to articulate that to a lender and a realtor. We actually started out with I just had like talked to a bunch of realtors. We didn't like go through like the whole process and then change realtors or anything, but we had like interviewed like a couple people, and the first woman that I talked to, I remember I had kind of like explained what I wanted to do. I wanted to use a VA loan. I wanted, to get like a multifamily, this and that. And she was saying she was like estimating just based off of what my income was, just talking to me, that then this was the realtor. She was just saying that we would be around like 300K. And when she told me that, I was like, dang, that's not like, that's these properties that we were looking at were like way above that. So then I started kind of getting nervous that we weren't gonna be able to make this work. But when we talked to the lender and explained the situation, like Matt was saying, and we actually like sent her the property and we're like, this is what we wanted to do, we were able to, you know, and we just had a pre-qualification letter at that point for 800 and
yeah, it was like the 860.
860, which was significant.
And that's like that, you know, if
and
you're
that's zeroed down.
If you're just looking and just communicating with a realtor, that could be an initial deterrent. You're like, dang, like maybe this isn't possible. So just, you know, something to keep in mind. You know, you're probably going to have to do a little bit more work on your end. Just be like, identify, hey, these are the types of properties I want. I'm looking up, these are the market rents I'm estimating, and provide that to your essentially to your lender. And I mean, our realtor, we identified the property and we like basically kind of like, we're like, hey, we want to see this property, this property, and this property. So like, typically realtors will kind of take in some of that information and say, hey, this is a list of properties available. So just kind of like, you know, doing a little bit more work on your part, but it's because you have the plan and you have the kind of goals that you're looking to achieve and your numbers make sense for those, you know, said properties.
I think, you know, whenever you're trying to move, you know, you have to have your goals. You have to have something that you're after. So it's like, for us, I think our experience was, I'm more interested in like analyzing the properties and looking at like, what are the rents and things like that. And as opposed to like, oh, I don't like the color of the walls, or, you know what I mean? Like those like things, like it's just a different mindset. You're going in looking at these properties as like, okay, how is this going to work in terms of reaching our goal to eliminate our housing expense?
You're going to be the minority in terms of the type of home buyer that a majority of realtors are used to working with, right? Because these realtors might try to envision, hey, what is your dream home, right? Like, what do you really want? You know, oh, those ceilings are a little too high, right? Like, none of that stuff matters to us, right? It's very unemotional when you are objectively looking at the numbers and saying, let the numbers guide your decision, right? And then when you do that, you kind of take a little bit of the emotion out of it, so you can make, you know, a more rational and logical decision. As opposed to, you know, being like, well, I really like the color of that door. In reality, the color of the door does not matter.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I just wanted to touch on real quick is VA loan limits. If you do like research, you'll start finding where these like VA loan limits by like counties or stuff, it'll, you know, it's like, I forget what it is now.
Yeah, so like
there's a whole list of what the VA will, like the limit they'll allow you to borrow or, you know, back with a VA loan. So, but the caveat is, and I did not know this when we first started, we actually had like a friend who had done something similar, heard, you know, kind of through the grapevine that someone had done this, and we were like, dang, we want to like see if that's possible. But basically, if you have your full entitlements, there's no limit on the amount that you can borrow. So you could get a like in theory,
$1.5 million fourplex.
Yeah, you could get
totally
like
within reason.
Like $2 million, you know, property, fourplex. And it all comes down to like what the bank is willing to lend you in terms of your debt to income ratio, and the way that you purchase a property that much is you have more on your income side, which is the rental potential from those other units. So yeah, you just have to kind of work the numbers. And how it worked for us with the lender is I just sent her like the listing. I think it was, we used Redfin, I remember, but they I don't know if it's on Zillow also, but they would break it down like in the details, and they'll say, you know, for each unit, here's like the projected market rents. And I think that was enough for the lender. Obviously when we went through,
like get the initial calculations going.
When we went through like the appraisal process, that's when they like kind of also will give you those, but at least just on the listing, And I don't know how accurate those numbers are, how accurate those numbers need to be, or if it's just thrown in there from the seller. But that was enough for the lender to at least get a pre-qualification. It was only a pre-qualification letter that we had. And that's what we were able to use in order, you know, to put an offer in on this house. So,
and then to confirm with what is listed, you know, on the website, you know, you want to reach out to your realtor. So we, you know, confirm with our realtor, and then as well as, you know, if there's property managers in the area, which is why it's a lot more important to, you know, surround yourself with the right team and the right network of people that are local to that area, because they have that expertise and they know the market rents and they know the demand, and they're more in tune with the market. Just because, you know, that's what they're doing on a daily basis. So really relying on your team is very important.
Yeah, so it took a lot of it definitely took a lot of us really driving this, which, I mean, you should be doing anyways, you know, doing your research prior to.
Help your realtor out.
Yeah, I mean, it was very, pretty much how it played out was so there was like a couple, so we started doing like our research, right? And we identified the area that we wanted to be in. And then we started looking at the properties individually. And when we were crunching the numbers on our spreadsheet and figuring out what worked out best, what I found was it was either the duplexes they weren't hitting the numbers that we wanted. Yeah. The triplexes and the quads were like getting us to that point when all things were taken into consideration of like significantly reducing the amount that I would pay, you know, that wasn't covered by the rental income,
you know, to live
or
in one
like
unit,
completely
rent out the
covering
rest,
it. Yeah. So we had identified maybe 4 or 5 properties, but there was one in particular that I was very interested in, and it was a triplex. It was like, it just was great. Like, so that's the one that I really wanted. So I was watching this one, and so I was back in
probably like
Texas.
March and April.
Yeah, this was April. So I was in Texas, and the thing is that these also were on the market. Like this was where houses were selling like that. You know what I mean? Spring of 2021, interest rates were still low, and you know, they were selling quickly.
Sub 3% interest rates. You know, people were still on that euphoria stage. Prices were still increasing.
And you were just like hearing these things where
multiple
there was multiple offers and
waiving contingencies, and you know, a lot of stuff that you think, if you're looking at this video in 2022, where interest rates are 7% on average, and you know, price on or days on market is increasing, and there's significantly less transactions. Just like some of those factors, you're probably thinking, wow, like, you know, very different between a buyer's and a seller's market, for example. Yeah, so at that time, things were going very quickly. But when you looked at like these multifamilies, they had been on the market for like 40, 50 days. So this triplex that I was like interested in, it had been on for probably like 40 or 50 days, and the list price was $850. And I was gonna make a trip. We were kind of, you know, planning to go like the next week or something, but then I saw like it was like a midweek, the list price decreased to, what was it? $850. 30K. Down to 820. Like yeah. It was like a 25, 30K price. 819. It went to 819, I remember. Okay. And I was like, shoot, like, I was like, what if more people, like this gets more interest from people and stuff? And I was like, I don't want to wait another week to go look at this place and then have it be gone, you know? So I think it was like maybe the next day. So I like texted the realtor and I was like, you know, I want to come see it. And she's like, okay, I'll set everything up. You know, we had about 4 or 5 places that we were looking at. And she's like, you know, I'll make arrangements so we can go see it on Saturday. So like drove through the night. I remember my sister actually lived in New Orleans at that time too. So stayed with her, but then we got up, Matt came in. Drove from Pensacola.
In Pensacola.
Drove over to New Orleans to check out the property.
And so that triplex was the first one that we saw. And you know, when we were looking at it, it was great. Like it just was, it looked even better than was in the pictures and everything. And it was, so the breakdown was like it had like 2 shotgun units on the top, and then the bottom.
So
and
2 bedroom,
like
2 bath on top.
Yeah.
So 2 units of that. So 2 bedroom, 2 bath on the left side, 2 bedroom, 2 bath on the right side. And then in the downstairs, which was the biggest driver for us, was actually a 4-bedroom, 2-bath.
So like, and the configuration was just great. The house was in great condition, like all that stuff. So we liked it. But as soon as like, you know, we were walking out, the seller's agent, she was like, you know, we have another people coming to see it this afternoon. So then I was like, oh man. So then we went and looked at some of the other houses, and
none of them competed, just in a number sense and in like the condition of the house.
So we actually, so then we went to another one, I forget which one. No, I think we pulled up to the next one, and literally my realtor called me, and you know, because she was driving in separate cars, but she's like, this one just went under contract, and I was like, oh, I know.
No. So that really like added more urgency.
It really added so
situation.
much more urgency, and I was like, dang. And then I was like, I'm really interested. I told her, remember, I was like, we're really interested in this first one, and I think that she like had called the seller's agent back again, and she was like, to try to get the process rolling. Like, our realtor was very good. And then we went and looked at another one, but like Matt said, the condition just wasn't as nice. And then we looked at another one after that, and that one was just like,
it made the decision clear.
It made the decision was easier.
And what you're gonna find when you're looking at these multifamily properties is the competition is much smaller than every other home buyer trying to just get a normal single family home. So just keep that in mind. You know, you're going to see longer days on market for multifamilies, which is fine, just because of the demand for that. You know, the 2 to 4 unit, most homeowners that want to find their dream home are going to want their own space. They're going to want certain features and certain amenities. And so they're not really going to be maybe inclined to want to share a space in a sense.
Definitely different. It's
a short-term sacrifice for that long-term kind of goal or essentially position that you want to put yourself in.
Well, so we went and looked, and just the other houses, they didn't compare to that first one we looked at. So I don't even think that we were prepared. Like, were you prepared to put in we were going to put in an offer that day? I was like semi-prepared, but I was like, we'll just go look at the houses and then we'll have time. But then then knowing that other buyer, and so this whole time I think our realtor was talking with the other realtor just to like kind of get what the status was. And I think at that point they said they put in another offer, or that the other people that had come to look at that house were thinking about putting in an offer. And so then we were really like, don't you remember being at that one house, one of the other houses, and I was like,
just put an offer on the other house.
I was like, so we're interested. And then I was like, what is that even? Like, no concept of like how to put in an offer for a house.
Like, oh yeah, just put an offer.
I was like, well, what does that mean? And she's just like, well, you know, and she explained that she drafts up the contract and all of that stuff. We just decided that that's what we were going to do, because we felt that urgency with, you know, the other people, which was fine. You know, we probably needed a kick in the butt anyways to get ourselves really like pushed over the threshold to do something like this.
And then when you are operating in a market where there's maybe multiple offers, or you kind of like, hey, this is like a really good deal. The other thing that we did is we wrote a handwritten letter to the sellers. And, you know, it's just like, hey, you know, this is our situation. This is who we are. Just kind of maybe put sort of a personality to maybe just a couple names on paper, right? Because we didn't meet them or nothing, but we just maybe, you know, just add a little more clarification on what our intentions were. And so who knows, maybe that was the determining factor, or maybe it wasn't, but, you know, at least we wanted to kind of put our best foot forward. And then we did offer a little bit over their asking price.
And that played out because we were talking with our realtor like throughout the rest of the evening, and she's like, okay, you know, for sure that these other people had put in an offer, and she's like, you know, at this point, you know, just given how things are, we might have to go 5 to 10 over asking price. And we were like, we're comfortable with that, because I had already so at this point it was what we had put in 819.
So it was 819.
And it was originally listed for
$849.
And I had run the numbers and everything with the $849. Like I was already kind of like thinking, like comfortable with that.
Right.
So yeah, what we ended up doing was going 15K over.
So 834? Yeah, 834.
Yeah. And looking back, I'm like, could we have done something different? Like, you know, they talk about like escalation clauses. I had asked our realtor about that, and she said that that's not really something that gets done. New Orleans has its own like kind of particular things about it. Which is why
it's very important, you know, you're working with a local realtor. They understand a lot of how the transactions will, you know, kind of play out in their local market. So, you know, us coming new, you know, we had to rely on her experience a lot. And so she helped out through that process. So that was very helpful.
Yeah, so she recommended going 10 over. We ended up going 15, which, you know, we kind of had called one of our...
I know, it's so funny because we were like, oh my gosh, should we do 10? Should we do 15? Should we do 12? Like we were going back and forth.
What do we do?
But again, to just get your foot in the door in that opportunity, what's the difference between 10 and 15?
Right.
It's
again, it would have been like an extra $50 a month, which it's like, but if you don't get the deal, then you're not getting anything. So that's kind of how we looked at it. And so we were comfortable already going, you know, 15 over the asking price that had already been like reduced, you know? So that's kind of how it played out for us. And then she texted us that morning and she was like, you know, you got the deal. So we were like,
it was accepted. And then we were just like, that's it?
So, we were like, dang.
Yeah.
So it all happened pretty quick.
Yeah. And then from there, that period of time until closing, you know, that's when you're going to go ahead and coordinate with your realtor and do your inspections, do your due diligence, and kind of, you know, just make sure everything is in line with what, you know, is on paper. It's make sure it's matching, you know, with the actual property. So that's your time to kind of go through, be a little bit more detailed, get in the, you know, in the due diligence period.
Also, the only other thing that I wanted to maybe talk about was at that time, I already been hearing a lot that VA loans were not like being accepted. Well, you know, people at that time were putting in like all cash offers, which those were going really quick. And then between like a conventional, like a, you know, or a VA loan, the VA loan, I had just heard that the VA loan, like they were not choosing the VA loan.
The thing about with the VA loan and why sellers are a little bit hesitant to move forward with a buyer that's, you know, bringing a VA loan to the table is because the VA loan has a little bit more stricter guidelines. There, you know, have to use a VA loan appraiser. There might be a little bit longer delay. So in a time where it's sort of like a seller's market and they can kind of pick and choose their offers, presenting a VA loan is a little bit less appealing than maybe, you know, a certain buyer that's using maybe a conventional loan, waiving some of the contingencies, waiving some of the inspections. So you kind of, you can't forget, like, the deal also has to kind of line up with the kind of market that you are in, right?
That's something that we had talked with our realtor, and, you know, she was familiar. That's the other thing too. We picked a realtor that was, you know, when we talked to her initially, it's like we wanted her to have experience with, you know, dealing with VA loans and dealing with those kind of things, because there are some, it maybe is a little bit unfamiliar to some people. So being able to like articulate how it's going to play out from like putting in the offer to closing, you need to have that. But it worked out fine for us. And that's also why we were like, or at least I would, you know, we were comfortable going a little bit over asking price, just kind of like knowing these things in the back of our head, in order for us to like secure the
bag.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was kind of our experience.
If anything was maybe a little confusing, or if there were terms that you were like, wait, what does that mean? And, you know, we could do a better job of maybe explaining it in the context of kind of our discussion, you know, just feel free to just comment down below, and so we can kind of get some engagement and answer, you know, questions that you might have in today's type of market, and, you know, what kind of lessons learned that we can apply to, you know, help you, you know, get your first multifamily with, it doesn't have to be a VA, you know, there's other owner occupied types of loans, but obviously, you know, the VA was a tool that we used.
Yeah. And, you know, the market was different back then than it is now. So
and it will be different in the next 3 to 6 months.
Everything's going to be changing. But, you know, bottom line, the fact is like a VA loan is very powerful. With the 0% down, there's no limit with the amount that you can borrow if you do your research and, you know, make sure that the numbers work out and you're able to articulate that to a lender.
Yeah. You have this sort of tool to kind of accelerate your, you know, real estate portfolio if that's something that you're interested in doing. So great way to kind of get in the door in real estate. You know, you become a homeowner, you also become a landlord, a property manager. And so you're gaining that experience along the way to kind of help transition you towards a real estate investor if that's what your true desire is. So you gain a lot along the process. You learn the most by doing. So don't be afraid to go out, take action, and but obviously, it's going to take some work to educate yourself and network with people that have done what you're looking to achieve.
Yeah, true. This is obviously a big topic to cover, but we were kind of planning on doing another video maybe of, exactly the numbers breakdowns and how to analyze the property and what tools we used in order to do that. So that will maybe come in like a next video, but this is at least an overview just so that it's possible and that we have done it, and that was kind of our experience. So yeah, like, comment, and then subscribe if you feel so inclined. Thanks for the support.